Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. We're excited to come to you in our virtual suspects. We've got Ryan and we've got Matthew Ward. Y'all say hello.
Hey.
Howdy.
And our guest star today is Alan Peretz of Bold Retail. We're super excited to have you on, Alan. Go ahead and kick us off and tell us the Bold Retail story.
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version because I could probably bore you to tears with the long version. But I've been in consumer packaged goods for a long time. So I spent 14 years at Procter & Gamble and did the traditional brand management track there. And eventually they put me in charge of P&G's global direct-to-consumer e-commerce. So I ran their stores for SK-II and Art of Shaving and many others as well. And what I discovered in that process, and later on as I was consulting with other companies, was that e-commerce was way harder than it should be. And the reason is because it's hyper fragmented. You've got specialists in a number of fields. You've got Amazon specialists, Walmart specialists, website specialists, acquisition marketing specialists. So we built Bold, and we've actually just changed the name to Bold Strategies, but we built Bold with the idea that we would provide all of that under one roof. And we would do it for mid-sized companies who usually wouldn't be able to build that kind of capability in-house or have the means or time to pull together that kind of cross-company team. So we try to be that all-in-one e-commerce department today, and I love it. And the reason why I love it is because for many years, getting to retail, you had to be very, very big. You had to have those relationships with the Walmarts and the Krogers of the world. But e-commerce has opened up competition in a way that wasn't the case before. And now really innovative, small and mid-sized brands are having access that they never had before. And it's really exciting to see. And it's a real pleasure for us to see every day and to be a part of that.
I'm going to take you back a little bit, some of your journey, because I know a little bit about your history and us being the Startup Junkie, being a veteran-owned small business on the for-profit side. I know you're an Army guy. Talk a little bit about your Army experience and how that helps inform what you do now as a growing venture CEO.
Yeah, so I was in the Army, as you said, a long time ago. So I started in 1990. I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I was in the first Gulf War. And I think, the way that's prepared me for what I do today is I learned how to deal with a lot of intensity and a lot of complexity and ambiguity, and that is definitely what we deal with every day for our clients. But I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. I learned so much about leadership. I got to see great leaders, mediocre leaders, and not so great leaders in my time there, and it taught me who I wanted to be. And I'll tell you, initially coming out of the military and going into the civilian world, there was a bit of an adjustment. You have to change your style a bit, but I worked with a number of other veterans who gave me great coaching along the way, and I think I learned how to keep the best of what I got there and put the rest off to the side, just given the change of context. And it's been really good. But yeah, the big thing for me was that I really learned how to deal with a lot of change and ambiguity and uncertainty. And that is definitely what the industry is experiencing today.
Alan, what got you interested in retail?
First and foremost, I'm interested in brands and consumer packaged goods, but the way that you get to the consumer is through retail and with the partnership of retailers. So the interest in retail is really an interest in bringing brands and innovation to market in an interesting way. And what got me interested in e-commerce as a branch of retail was just the amount of control that you have in e-commerce that you've never had at physical retail before. So in growing up in the branded goods world, working on Bounce fabric softener, for example, there were many people you had to align to a packaging change, and it could take months, it could take even a year to get that packaging change to market. What excites me most about the e-commerce part of retail is you can do those things very, very quickly. So as quickly as you can produce something, You can get it out there. You can get a reaction. You can get ratings and reviews. You can do A/B testing. And what's most exciting about retail to me today is the immediacy it has compared to what it historically had.
So talk a little bit about, you talked to kind of give us the elevator pitch with bold strategies, but this whole startup experience has been kind of new. I mean, coming from being a corporate guy and whatnot and getting into this venture, talk about what that journey's been like and, where you are in terms of headcount and where you see things going a little bit.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of an in-between. So I worked at that really big consumer packaged goods company, but after that, I worked for an agency for about 3.5 years and got a lot of hands-on experience with client service. I actually started off, I'll rewind all the way back, but before P&G, I did a little bit of consulting for an accounting firm, primarily actually internet consulting in the very early days. But then I went to P&G for years and years and years and left and worked at another agency for 3.5 years and had a wonderful experience there. In fact, I still speak to those people today, including the leadership of that company, and they gave me a lot of great guidance. But the transition, was difficult. So coming from a big company to a smaller company and eventually your own company, the level of risk goes up. So when I was in the big company world, my outcomes as an individual and as a manager and as a person who's trying to learn how to be better, the band of possible outcomes was relatively narrow. Coming out and working for smaller companies and then even more so for my own company, the range of outcomes is huge, right? You could be a tremendous success, or you could, or things could fall apart, and all that could happen in a week if you don't really, watch what's happening. So, I think the risk has gone up pretty substantially, but for me, that's a good thing. I wanted control, and I wanted a chance to really prove myself, and that's what it's meant to me.
And really, in this day and age, nobody's untouched by this COVID crisis. So how has that impacted, retail strategy, e-commerce strategy for y'all?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a scary thing for us. So we spent all of Q1 of 2020 rebuilding. So we focused on developing a new website, a new pricing model, new tools, new reports, and all of that stuff. So we really voluntarily pulled back on business development for a quarter and focused on the inside and focused on trying to make ourselves better for the next phase. The timing of COVID obviously was bad for everybody. It felt really, really scary from a business standpoint for us because we reopened shop and started talking again in this environment of fear. And I will tell you that for probably most of May and going into June, it felt a little scary. People were afraid to spend money. But what we found very quickly was that COVID caused people to realize that e-commerce was no longer a nice to have for them, but it really was kind of the one thing that, from a retail standpoint, was not only doing well, but had accelerated dramatically. I think you guys have seen the stats. E-commerce's share of market has gone from 16 to 25+% in the period. So what we found is not everybody is willing to invest, but there are a core of companies that we're talking to who have now moved from this being a one-day kind of thing to I must do it now. And we're ready to help those kinds of companies really well, since we can help them look at not only one piece of the pie, like their website or Amazon or Walmart, but we can help them tackle the whole thing very quickly and make up 3 years of progress in a very short time. So for us, it's been good. It was a little scary for a while, but now it's looking very solid.
And you've had a great success in attracting some really fantastic people, subject matter experts, retail, knowledgeable folks. What do you think? What would you attribute that success to? And talk a little bit about the culture. How are you able to get such great people in the doors?
Yeah, it's a really, I think it's all I can say is, first of all, great people attract other great people. So you have to be willing to make a bet and invest a little more. And we've certainly made those decisions along the way to get those attractors who are going to bring in additional talent. So that's been first and foremost a really, really big part of it. I think other than that, I think people are attracted by the vision. They're attracted by the kind of companies that we work with. So a lot of our employees have worked with bigger companies before, and they have a little bit of fatigue with the bureaucracy that sometimes occurs in larger companies or with larger clients. And we're working with a lot of very small and nimble clients, and you'll often get to work directly with the founder or the CEO or the VP of the region, and that's your primary client. And as someone who is early to midway through their career, that's a great opportunity to influence in a way that you wouldn't at a different kind of firm. So I'd say it's a combination of we built some good momentum with some really great early hires, and that attracted other people, and just the subject matter is really interesting to people and different.
What does winning look like as you think about 5 years down the road? What's your ideal picture, your vision of where it will be?
I would, we've actually spent a lot of time thinking about that. So we've done a lot of strategy work. We want to be the company that emerging and growing companies want to go to when they've started to make it, but they want to hit that next phase. So consumer packaged goods company X has a great proof of concept. Things are going well. They don't know how to scale it further, but they know that if they choose Bold is going to help them do it. So that's the kind of reputation we want to have. We want to be that really desirable partner that people aspire to work with, and that employees, to your point, aspire to work for as well.
Alan, what do you see as being the biggest hurdle for Bold?
Biggest hurdle for Bold is having people understand why we're different. We're in a crowded space today, and there are a couple of differentiators. We've touched on some of those. One of those is the range of marketplaces and retail channels that we handle. So that's a really big differentiator for us. Another one is really that we understand consumer packaged goods in a way that a lot of our competition doesn't. So some of our competitors are great technically, but they may not have the category depth that we have. So people have to meet us and speak to us before they really understand that. I think the greatest challenge is just telling them enough to get them excited to want to meet with us, and then after that, usually things work out very well. But yeah, to succinctly answer your question, it's just a crowded space, and you have to tell your story very well. And it takes, as any entrepreneur knows, it takes a lot of practice to do that, and you have to be very humble and listen really well.
So I ask you an industry question here. We've seen the bankruptcies, the Chapter 11s and whatnot, primarily amongst some of the department store brands. For those that didn't do a good job transitioning to omni-channel and aren't great at direct-to-consumer, what's the outlook? Are they going to make it, or are they just going to fold up and be more roadkill in the retail space? What do you think?
There's definitely going to be a lot of roadkill, without a doubt. So there is going to be a consolidation. I think we're going to see quite a bit of M&A activity in the future. As you know, a lot of what these companies represent is real estate. That's obviously going to be under a lot of pressure as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of M&A activity. I think some of the smart ones that have brands and are able to find new ways to take those brands to market, maybe not through their own traditional channels, but through other channels, are going to succeed. But to answer your question directly, there is going to be a lot of roadkill and a lot of churn in coming years. So the retail race right now is still largely led by Amazon and Walmart.
It may end up being a duopoly, two big players and everybody else, right? If it isn't already. Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that I incorrectly earlier mentioned or referred to Bold as Bold Retail. It's actually Bold Strategies, as you pointed out. Tell me a little bit about why the move to going from Bold Retail to Bold Strategies.
Yeah, it goes back to having people really understand what you do. So we started off as Bold Retail, and retail was a very big pillar of what we did. But retail took people to one place. It was, you're going to help me at Walmart, and you're going to help me at Amazon. And we also do things like creating brand websites and marketing those websites, and we do a lot of market assessment, market strategy work. So we felt like the move to Bold Strategies, which encompasses Bold Answers, Bold Retail, Bold Campaigns, and Bold Fulfillment, was a better positioning for the brand. It's a big risk because as you know, you spend a couple of years getting SEO and getting people to understand who you are and all that kind of stuff. So it is a fairly big investment to change your name, but we felt like this was the right time to do it, and we took that chance.
With you guys being a knowledge-based business, and yet you were all, I think the vast majority of the team, if not all of it, was kind of co-located pre-pandemic. What are some specific things you learned about working virtually in terms of productivity? And as you grow the team, if you go from where you are now to 10 times as big, would you be open to the idea of a good percentage of the team being virtual, or what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time thinking about that. For me personally, as an individual, it's been hard. Like I like to walk around and talk to people, and you can replicate that virtually, and you can pop in on people's desktops through a Zoom or through Slack or whatever. But for me, some of that isn't quite the same. I'll tell you, from an effectiveness standpoint, we haven't been dramatically impacted. Most of our clients are remote. They're around the country. We didn't spend a whole lot of time flying out because it just didn't make sense given the work that we were doing, which happened every day and every week. So the work flow has not been affected dramatically, but the thing that we always try to keep tabs on is, are we getting that quality interaction as people, as humans, as teams from a team building standpoint? And that's really, really, really hard to do, and it's something we're all still learning, I think.
Alan, earlier you mentioned the transition from corporate to starting your own company was very difficult. What advice would you give to other people who are striving to start their own company or have an idea, but they're too afraid to take that jump? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, so it took me, first of all, it took me probably a year and a half to decide that I was really ready to leave the big company. And then it took me another year before starting my own company to decide that was really what I wanted to do. And I neglected to thank you guys. I'll tell you that having Startup Junkie here and the ecosystem and the advice made me feel a lot more comfortable doing that. So that was a really big help. Knowing that there's a support structure out there, formal and informal, makes a really big difference. But the advice I would have is talk to a lot of people and obviously listen. You're always going to think that your idea is exciting because you came up with it. But you're going to need to have a lot of conversations and shape it and fine tune it over time. And my biggest advice would be just look before you leap and really understand what you're getting into and shape it as best as you can. Obviously, the market is going to shape it more, but shape it as best as you can before you go out there, and that'll help you get some early success. Certainly, if you're in a high service business, and if you could land a couple of deals before you start, that would be wonderful. It wasn't the case for us. We kind of jumped in and started generating business right off the bat. But yeah, spend a lot of time talking and listening and shaping because that iteration is really, really important.
When you look back at your career, that time at Procter & Gamble and the marketing agency and whatnot, and what you're doing now, if you were to draw some distinctions between what makes a successful consumer packaged goods product launch and something that resonates and ends up being a big hit versus one that doesn't quite get there, what are some of those key points? I think it'd be really interesting for our audience because lots of people have an aspiration of launching something, and some of them just think it's some kind of freaking art. I know it's art, but it's also a lot of science and data. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I would say, especially now doing what I'm doing and seeing what wins and doesn't win, every day. I would say clarity of idea is probably the biggest thing in my book. And I'm going all the way back to everything I launched from my early days as an assistant brand manager to stuff that I'm helping people with today. So really understanding what is that single insight about the consumer that this product is based on, and making sure that everything that you do reinforces the benefit that's going to drive your success. And I'll give you some examples. So, Death Wish Coffee, a brand that really got their start on Amazon. They are about being the world's strongest coffee, and you can't look at anything they do and not get that. I mean, they say it, they show it, they speak about it at length in their copy. Another great example would be Puracy. So a range of cleaning products, all about clean label, clean ingredients. The packaging reinforces that, the way the product look reinforces that. And of course, everything they do from an SEO and creative standpoint reinforces that as well. So the brands that we see winning today are the ones who said, I have to be different, and I've got to be different in this way. And everything they do drives the heck out of that one point of difference in a way that makes them stand out.
That's great insight and super helpful.
One of the last questions we ask before we land the plane is, if you had the opportunity to go back in time and visit with your younger self, is there anything that you would tell your younger self, something that you know now that you think the younger Alan should know?
Well, I try to live under a strict no regrets policy. So that's a hard question for me to answer. But what would I tell my younger self? I think if I would tell my younger self one thing, it probably would have been to do what I'm doing now a little bit sooner. So, great time to start a business. I'm super happy with the way things turn out. But there was a little bit of fear. I probably would have jumped a little bit earlier into this mode, and I think that's the one thing.
That's great. And you were airborne in the Army, right? So jumping early, as long as the chute deploys, is okay, right?
Okay.
You were airborne guy. You were airborne guy in the military.
No. I was a straight up regular infantry guy, and then I went to Signal Corps.
Oh, gotcha. So you never got thrown out of the back of a plane. You had to wait till startup time to do that.
Actually, I got to live in the back of a armored personnel carrier instead, which is much less comfortable, I think.
Understand.
A little less glamorous too. So.
Well, so where can potential customers, clients, anybody that wants to talk to you find out more about Bold Strategies?
Yeah, the best place to look is www.boldstrategies.com, all one word. And we are very happy to consult with anybody. In fact, not only will we listen to you, but we'll also give you a little bit of information about your category and who you're competing with that you may not have already known. So we're always happy to do that. And we'll look at some data together and see if there's an opportunity. And if so, we'd love to help.
Thanks, Alan. I mean, super inspiring story and trajectory that you guys are on. We're glad you're in Northwest Arkansas, and we look forward to a lot more big things. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.